Hi guys, so in today's video I want to talk to you about single arm strength and specifically how to safely and progressively build this for aerial skills that you actually want to learn. So something that I think we don't necessarily realize is how big of a jump it actually is to go from anything where we are hanging or pulling with two arms to anything where we are hanging or pulling with one arm. It is significantly more difficult to hang from one arm, for example, to be able to grip, to make sure that our shoulder is in the right position, and to take all of our body weight through that single arm and those individual joints. And so it can be very easy to feel stuck where you are very strong when you've got two arms on the equipment, but as soon as you go to take one arm off, everything kind of goes, or you don't feel like you've got yourself anymore. And so, what we really need to do when we are working towards building strength like this, which is actually quite advanced, is understand how to modify exercises so that we can bridge the gap between two arms and one arm. And really, this just comes back to the complexities of skill work and understanding how to adapt movements. So, I am going to be sharing three of my favorite ways to modify drills to start to work on single arm strength building. So, the very first thing that I recommend working on is using your feet. This is the easiest and most effective way to modify a drill. One of the reasons why I love the use of feet is because you have control over how much or how little support you give through the legs. So if I go from a two arm hang into a one arm hang, but I keep my feet on the floor, I can make sure that I feel confident in my grip, that my shoulder is in the right position, so down away from my ears. I can make sure that my lats are pulling down, that they are engaged, and I can stop my body from swinging around. So I stay in full control of the movement and the position, but I am working that single side of the body. Even with feet on the floor, this is still hard. This is still training single arm strength. It's still only one arm that is supporting my body. The difference is my feet give me some extra support. So it's just like lightening the load. This also allows you to really effectively focus on technique. If we don't understand the position that our shoulder needs to be in and how to pull through one arm, then if we take one arm away from a two arm hang, it's just not going to work. We're not going to know how to engage anything. We're not going to understand what we're trying to do, and even if we do stay there, we could potentially be in the wrong position or in a position that's like less effective or putting strain on the shoulder joint, and we don't want to do that. So I always recommend feet on the floor as a first step when we're trying to do something that is more technical, if the exercise will allow for that. Not every exercise, particularly if we're upside down, is going to allow feet on the floor, but if you can have them on the floor, this is a great first step. The next way that we can look at still giving ourselves some support from the second hand, but focusing more on loading one side of the body, is using a prop. So this could be something like a strop, for example, where we choke it around the bar or on the gymnastics rings, whatever the equipment is that we're using. And what we can do is we can adjust the position of the hand to give more or less support. So if my hand on the strop is higher up the strop, it will be closer to a two arm hang. As I start to take my hand down the strop, I'm giving less and less support through the spare arm. And I start to take more load through the arm that is doing more of the work that we are focusing on training the single side of. This can be really, really great for hangs. It can also be a really helpful way of training our inverts and understanding how to start using one side of the body more if single arm invert is a goal. And I just really like it because, again, you have choice over how much or how little support you give from the spare arm. One thing I would recommend is using something that is a bit more solid, like a strop over a resistance band, because the resistance band will stretch and you have less control over how that's going to move. I prefer choosing a prop that gives you support that you have control over. And then the final modification that I like to make for single arm work, for bridging the gap towards more technical single arm skills, is using the spare hand, but on your wrist or forearm. So this definitely is more advanced, but the reason why I like it is because you are still using both arms to initiate the movement. The difference is it's only one arm that is connected to the apparatus. So by this point, you need the grip strength for that. And you're still loading the arm that is holding onto the equipment significantly more than the spare arm. The spare arm is just pushing against your arm in the same way that you would use a strop. But this is a really cool way to start working on moving in and out of different single arm positions, transitioning between something like a meat hook to a nutcracker, for example, and working on single arm inverts, both the up and coming out of it. You can also use less support with the spare hand. So rather than pressing the entire hand on your wrist or forearm, you could go to like just 3 fingers or just 2 fingers or just 1 finger. So again, there are ways to progress this and still use help from the spare arm, but very gradually and slowly we can load the primary arm with more and more of our body weight. So the overarching theme of all of these modifications for training single arm strength is that you can gradually build up how much load is going through each arm and shoulder. You have ways of making movements easier and you have ways of making movements harder. And being able to modify exercises like this is so important to bridge the gap between something like a 2 arm hang and a 1 arm hang, or being able to invert with 2 arms but then progressing to a single arm invert. We cannot just go from 2 arms to 1 arm one day magically. We need to very safely and slowly build the strength so that one single arm, one single shoulder joint, one single side of the body can cope with the load and be strong enough to initiate and complete the movements with no issues. And if you want to learn more about how to train single arm strength for your aerial in a way that actually works for your body, is very safe and progressive, and gives you lots of different options, I have a 6-week self-paced program for aerialists called Single Arm Strength for Aerialists. This is currently on sale with 50% off. There is a link in the description below if you would like to check it out or sign up to it. And this will give you a ton of tools on how you can work towards things like single arm hangs, single arm inverts, and meat hooks. Plus, I include a bunch of training for shoulder prehab so that you can make sure your shoulders stay healthy throughout, and pushing movements so that we are balancing out all of the pulling. I really hope you enjoyed this video and took something helpful away from it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.